Hey guys, Professor Bill of Comic Book University and Iceman, issue number 1. This is the second series of Iceman being written by Cinna Grace. And since we're talking about the people who are on this book, let's actually talk about the people who are on this book. Cinna Grace is the writer. Nathan Stockman is going to be the artist in this, at least the first arc of this run. We'll see what's up. Federico Blee is the colorist. VC's Joe Sabino is the letterer. W. Scott Forbes is the cover artist, and Scotty Young did a variant cover, so did the team of Nick Bradshaw and Maury Hallowell. So, in this issue, we get to see that there is a new Mutant Massacre starting, even though it seems like it's kind of kids' gloves, but whatever. It's really not very different. It's characters who we don't know, except everybody knew Sabretooth. Like, there's no doubt everybody who was reading Mutant Massacre in the original one knew who Sabretooth was. There was no Sabretooth in this one, and I'm glad, because I want Sabretooth to be the good guy, stay in Greg Pak's Weapon X book. But, yeah, there's nobody in here that I actually remembered who are the bad guys, the Mutant Massacrers, the Marauders, actually. But, they are still, however, answering to... and by the way, guys, if you're not familiar with Comic Book University, I will always spoil the hell out of an issue 1 because you need full disclosure to know if you should consider buying this book. After that, I'm a little less forthcoming with spoilers, all right? So, spoilers in this issue starting right now. Mr. Sinister is the head of this. Yes, right into it, guys. Is the head of this particular run at the Morlocks, at the Marauders who are killing Morlocks. And the Morlocks they weren't expecting an attack. They weren't expecting anything. And all of a sudden, some of them just start getting killed randomly, spuriously, in little hit and run type operations. And it's funny because this reminds me a lot. I was just talking to one of my subs today. About how... like he's Native American. I've got some Native American in me, and we were just talking about how the easiest thing in the world to do is to, if you want to kill somebody or kidnap somebody or do something really stupid and malicious, is to go do it on a Native American reservation because they don't have protections. They literally have nobody to protect them except themselves, and can't walk around with armed guards everywhere you go, so it's a messed up thing. And it's not just in America, it's in Canada too. It's here also. So what do you do? But that is a lot like how the Morlocks were being treated in this issue, the exact same way. These are guys who don't like the way that these people look. They're also mutants, mind you, this new version of the Marauders. They just think that, we've got to expunge these people. In reality, Mr. Sinister is always, even in his origin stories, he's been shown as somebody who likes to go into the sewers, so to speak, and find the undesirables, the people who nobody's going to miss, and do experimentation on these mutants. It's just, that's what he is. That's how Sinister gets his jollies, In the interim, we also find out at the very end that the White Queen, Emma Frost, comes up and wants to have a conversation with Bobby. She manipulated Jubilee, and yeah, can you manipulate her just right out the building? Never a Jubilee fan. But this is particularly interesting, and I'm wondering where this is going to go. By the display on the cover for the next issue, they're showing that she's like in his arms crying, and she's got, icy diamond-like tears. So I don't know if she's just coming to ask for help, this, that, or the other thing, whatever. But the thing that I'm reminded of every time I see these two together is how she explained that he is an Omega level mutant and probably one of the most powerful mutants in all of the world. And that's pretty badass. And she was able to use powers that he had like nobody's business. And he says, "Will you teach me how to use these?" Like he threw himself at her feet for guidance. And she was just kind of like, "Psh, get away from me, knave." More specifically, it was, no, I think that you should try and figure this stuff out on your own. And I can't blame her at all for that. But when I see these two together, every single time I think to myself, ooh, there might be a lesson. So wouldn't that be an interesting way of doing things if she needed his help and he decided, I'll help you, but the cost is one lesson. Help me unlock one ability that I can do. So that's not bad, man. That would be cool if they did that. I didn't see that in this, but there's still time. There's still time to pull that off. And Sin of Grace, if you're watching, feel free to use that. This is the video proof. But so that's it for this particular issue. At the very end, Cena talks about how the previous run was canceled. I don't remember how many issues that went to. I read the first 8, and I did reviews of all those, and I politely bowed out of it because it was clearly a comic book geared towards gay people. It obviously wasn't geared towards me. I told a funny story about how I first found out about the term bear by reading issue number 1 of Bear, the magazine. And I just remember thinking about, well, not reading the whole thing, but just looking at the pictures. I pulled off the shelf and just like, this is a pretty cool thing. You know, I like bears. I was just looking at the title. And I thought they were talking about like polar bears and grizzly bears and, you know, stuff like that. I didn't realize. So, you know, that was interesting. I'm like, oh, wait, I get it. These guys are called bears. Shirtless gay guys are called bears. Okay, get it. Okay, well, this book obviously isn't for me, and I folded up and put it back on the shelf nice and polite. That's it. And I wound up doing the same thing with Iceman. The comic book obviously wasn't made for me. It's not that big of a deal, you know? So I politely bowed out of it. Didn't say anything rude about it. I'm not one of those channels. F those channels. And their immature little, I don't know, deviant, they're probably going to call it brilliance, more like jackassery. But at the same time, another one of my subs made a mention to me how, oh, look, they're bringing back Iceman. Will you read issue 1 at least? It's like, yeah, of course I will. Absolutely, because I just want to see what's up. And I started thinking about it afterwards, and I relayed some of this to him, how I believe that Marvel should make a gay comic book. And if it's this comic book, then so be it. Again, I will politely bow out of it. Let's say if Sin of Grace directly asked me, would you please continue reviewing this comic book? I probably wouldn't talk about the idea that it's clearly made for gay people, but I would read it. They have to send me the comic book, but I would absolutely read and review the comic book and just look at it that way. But again, the way that I review comic books, I read them for me. I specifically read them for me. I know there's I can't remember what he's called. I'm probably butchering it, and I apologize if I am. Gay Comic Geek, I think his name is. I don't remember, but it's something like that. It's something like exactly like that. He writes his titles in the rainbows and everything like that. He's always doing that thing. Now, like, my beard is wet, but I know he reviews the comic books, and I don't watch his reviews. I don't watch anybody else's reviews because I don't want them to influence how I do my reviews. I like to be unique in my own, and I recommend all reviewers to do that. But my point is, like, there are people who will review this and not be jerks about it. So I look at it that way. So, you know, again, unless I were asked specifically to review this, if it's going to become like the previous run where I felt that, oh, look, it's only for gay people, you know, only for a gay audience, why would I still be reading that comic book, you know? But yeah, again, if I were asked to, then I would read it despite what's in it. Unless it just became really, really bad and I have to give negative reviews, then it's just like, yeah, I'm not going to review this comic book anymore. No more reading it, no more reviewing it, I'm done. Because I don't want to give negative reviews to comic books. I'll give one, and I probably won't read the next issue. That's just the way it works with me. But I do feel that Marvel should do a gay comic book. So even though there wasn't anything like that in this comic, it is what it is. And why should they do a gay comic? If you were gay, then you would understand. And if you don't, then ask a gay person, and I'm sure that person would be able to explain it to you. We definitely need representation for everyone everywhere. And I'm not so attached to Iceman that I think, they made one of our characters. It's one character, dude. Relax. So I'm totally okay with whatever happens. But right now, I was able to enjoy this comic book. This was generally a fun read. We get to see a whole bunch of things that are, well, two things that are definitely going to be happening in the future. We get to see Sinister as a potential, well, a guaranteed, and something's going to happen next issue with Emma Frost. It may be another arc before we find out what happens with Mr. Sinister, because he took a particular interest in Bobby Drake. So let's see what happens there. Let's see what happens. Yeah, I don't know. It is what it is, man. For all intents and purposes, this comic book was good. This comic book felt like it was written, not specifically for me, but, for a general audience. Yeah, that's it. That's it. I think that everybody will, in general, enjoy this. This was really good art. There's also a thing in the back where I don't remember if I talked about this specifically, but where Cena is talking about everything having to do with the comic book and the cancellation of the previous series. Why Gil, I can't remember the guy's name, and I'm not going to start skimming through my digital copy of the comic book to get to that last page again. But yeah, why Gil, I think his name is Gil, is working on Valiant comic books right now. I'm okay with either of these guys. They're perfectly interchangeable as far as I'm concerned. Nathan Stockman did a beautiful job in this comic book. I enjoyed everything that I read in it. And that's it. That's it. Okay. I will probably check out next issue. All right. Professor Bill, Comic Book University. Voice just broke. Class dismissed.